May 1, 1960. An American reconnaissance aircraft hit by a Soviet missile falls near Sverdlovsk. The pilot survives and is admitted to work for US intelligence. From this moment, one of the iconic spy episodes of the Cold War will begin. Francis Powers, a 30-year-old CIA officer and Korean War veteran, takes off from an American airbase in Peshawar, Pakistan. He is one of the members of the American intelligence program, which collects information on the activity of the Soviet military using the latest Lockheed U-2 aircraft. On May 1, as usual, Powers was supposed to fly over the territory of the USSR and photograph military objects from a height of about 21 km. His path ran through the Soviet-Afghan border, the Aral Sea, Chelyabinsk, Kirov, Plesetsk, Murmansk, and the plane was to land in Norway. By this time, the pilot had completed almost 3 dozen flights. His mission was interrupted after about 4 hours. Despite the fact that the plane was at high altitude, it was noticed by the Soviet air defense system and launched missiles. Soon the wrecked plane lost contact with the base and entered the ground in a corkscrew. I looked up and saw an orange glow around. At first I could not understand whether it was just a reflection in the lantern or the whole sky was like that. And I remember saying to myself, "God, I'm done for," Powers later said. Initially, American intelligence did not comment on the incident. But a few days after the crash, the American Aerospace Agency NASA issued a press release claiming that their plane, which supposedly flew from Turkey, due to technical problems, first went off course and then crashed. The media even published a photo showing the crashed plane, repainted in NASA colors and with a serial number added. The words of the agency were repeated by the American President Dwight Eisenhower. But a week after the plane crash and the NASA statement, the Soviet authorities said that Powers not only did not die, but also did not destroy either the films with photographs of secret military facilities, or the plane itself, as it was supposed by the CIA protocol. Powers himself was shown a lot on Soviet television, footage from interrogations, things found on him, maps with marked military objects and fragments of U-2. After that, the US was forced to admit that he was an intelligence officer. By the time Powers was caught, American intelligence had regularly flown over the territory of the Soviet Union for several years and was surveying what it believed to be critical military targets. In the 1950s, paranoia towards each other grew on both sides of the Cold War. In the United States, by the middle of the decade, the extremely anti-communist sentiments of the authorities resulted in full-scale political repression against those who criticized the American leadership or spoke favorably about socialist ideas. Cultural and political figures were tried at open television hearings and suspended from professional activity for communist activity. The spy scandal contributed to the increase in paranoia. In 1957, one of the main Soviet spies, Rudolf Abel, was discovered in the United States. He was handed over to the American authorities by a former partner. For several years Abel collected information about the American nuclear industry through an agent network. He was found guilty of espionage and sentenced to 32 years in prison. At the same time, the US military and intelligence agencies were developing new ways to spy on the other side. Improvement in Soviet air defense systems and interceptors made American aircraft no longer able to approach the USSR's borders unnoticed. Then it was proposed to develop aircraft that would fly at an altitude where modern radar systems cannot track them, that is, above 19 km. This is how the active development of the U-2 aircraft began. By 1955, the Americans conducted the first successful tests, and by 1956 they launched a flight program over the Soviet bloc. For these operations, according to declassified CIA documents, a cover was invented in case something happened to the plane or was noticed. According to the official version, the plane is used to monitor the weather at high altitudes. This legend was supposed to be confirmed by the symbols of NASA that appeared in the photographs of the aircraft in the American press. But the documents recovered from Powers put the leadership of the United States in an awkward position. In mid-May 1960, a summit of the leaders of the USSR, USA, Great Britain and France was held in Paris. The meeting was supposed to help reduce tensions between the Western and Eastern blocs. But due to the incident with powers, the agenda of the event was disrupted. Khrushchev demanded that Eisenhower make a public apology and stop reconnaissance flights over the USSR, otherwise, he promised to withdraw his invitation to the president to visit the Soviet Union. The USSR president only expressed regret that the countries failed to mitigate tensions. Eisenhower never visited the Soviet Union. While awaiting trial, Francis Powers was imprisoned in the KGB's internal prison on Lubyanka. As the pilot later recalled, he was not beaten, but psychological torture was regularly applied to him. Powers said he was interrogated for almost 30 days, his sleep was interrupted, and during interrogation a bright beam of light was directed into his eyes. Powers' trial began a few months after his capture in August 1960. The Soviet authorities decided to open the process and allowed Powers' mother and wife to fly to Moscow. All meetings were symbolically held in the Column Hall of the House of Unions, where in the 1930s the trials of political opponents of Stalin took place. The Prosecutor General of the USSR, Roman Rudenko, personally represented the prosecution at the trial. The real trial of the American spy pilot Powers exposes the crimes committed not only by the defendant Powers personally, but also to the end exposes the criminal aggressive actions of the ruling circles of the United States, the true inspirers and organizers of monstrous crimes against the peace and security of peoples. Rudenko said. On the process, Powers was found guilty of espionage and sentenced to 10 years in prison. According to the verdict, he was to spend the first 3 years in Vladimir, in a prison for especially dangerous criminals, the former Vladimir Central. But Powers did not serve his term until the end. In February 1962, after long months of negotiations, Powers was exchanged for the Soviet spy Rudolf Abel, who had been convicted in the United States. But in the United States, the public greeted Powers himself with hostility. Then there were reports in the press that he allegedly deserted, the plane was not actually shot down, and Powers voluntarily landed him by prior agreement with the USSR. Upon his return, the pilot was interrogated by the American Special Services and a case was opened against him. But already in March 1962, all charges were dropped and presented for state awards. Francis Powers died in the summer of 1977 at the age of 48 while extinguishing large-scale wildfires in California. Then his helicopter ran out of fuel and crashed several kilometers from the nearest airfield. If you liked this video, then please subscribe to our channel and press the bell to receive notifications about new videos. Please go to view other videos on our channel that you now see in the end screens. Thank you all for watching.